So in this panel discussion, we are really honored to have our representative from the Ministry of Cooperation and Economic Development, Benjamin Knödler. He was already there last year, so I hope that it was really inspiring, and seeing you back, I think that's a warm applause for you. Then we have Jan Müller, who was also with us in several occasions in Africa, and who is now from the DEG, representing the active branch of financing of German business going to Africa and other future markets. Most welcome, Jan Müller. Then we have Christine Grag, who has an enterprise and very successful activities in Senegal. She will talk about it. Most welcome, Christine. And the Managing Director from GTI, German Trade and Investment, Dr. Nicola. Most welcome to him, Nicola Hermann. And last not least, the GIZ, Stefan Kunz, the responsible for SE Jobs, the entity who creates jobs in Africa, in Dakar, a most appreciated partner. Most welcome, Stefan. So the panel discussion about our SME Alliance in Africa takes a close look at the emerging markets around the global south and explores the question of how investments by German SMEs can be strengthened, which markets are developing particularly promisingly, and what can companies do to enter those markets. So I will start with you, Benjamin. The Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development recently published the new Africa strategy. So which key points could highlight as they pertain to facilitating private investment into the continent?
So thank you for inviting me. And well, I work for the government, but I'll try my very best to introduce a private sector perspective. So, I mean, mobilizing private investment is the holy cow, right? I mean, that's true for Germany, that's true for all of our partner countries when it comes to development, when it comes to job, when it comes to getting the economy fit for climate change. And it's so hard to do it. I fear there is no silver bullet. But we've done a very thorough look at what we can do from a development policy perspective to get more and better private investment on the road. And that's why we've bundled all of our advisory services for German companies who want to invest in our partner countries in the Agency for Business and Development. That as a one-stop shop for German companies who want to do business in Africa, in Latin America, in Southeast Europe, in Southeast Asia. So that's a good thing, because it makes it easier to get in touch with us. Before there were like 3 different entities, and now it's just one. And we'll sort out, we'll do the service to sort it out for you, to get in touch with the competent person. That's one thing, advisory services. And second is finance, and I don't need to elaborate because Jan is sitting next to me. We've recently recapitalized the Impact Connect Fund, which is a fund for SMEs in Europe to invest in Africa and now beyond, also in our partner countries worldwide. Because it's proved to be very successful and it really addresses a market gap that commercial banks do not fill. So that's a good thing too. And second, we are trying to focus our investment, because part of the reality is that money is limited, and it's always limited, so we can't do everything. So we thought, what are the most pressing issues? And one we call just transition. So that's a very political term. Just transition, meaning more and better energy for the people. While we say transition in Germany, for many of our partner countries, is about access to energy, but it's a joint responsibility to get it right and to make sure, or to make it more practical, to make sure that our investments work for the people and the planet at the same time. And that's our guiding principles, and that's our guiding principles for funding investments, and that's our guiding principles for public-private partnerships.
Yeah. Thank you, Benjamin. We'd just like to greet our new arrivals, 2 ministers from Algeria, together with Mrs. Kritro. Most welcome, please. We are very honored by your presence today. Thank you. So Jan Müller, as already we discussed about Impact Connect, you launched a new funding program, as Benjamin just explained, for German and European companies at the beginning of this year. So what has changed compared to the previous Africa Connect program, and which companies here can benefit from your financing offer?
Thank you. Yeah, with Africa Connect, just to give you a brief introduction to what we're actually doing. With Africa Connect, we finance European, especially German mid-cap, Mittelstand companies on the African market with the limit up to 5 million euros or local currency, so rather smaller investments. The program was launched by the German government 5 years ago. And now, after several successful years, after over 60 successful financings on the African market, we together decided to broaden the scope. So 2 things changed. First of all, the regional focus on Africa was broadened. So now it's our financing partner countries are all BMZ partner countries, which basically are the most important emerging and developing countries in the world. So it's much broader on that side. Ukraine is also a very strong focus on that point. And the second thing what changed is we focus more on impact. So this not just the name, but it's really our DNA. So we implemented a rather innovative mechanism to nudge companies, to not convince, but to help companies to understand that impact matters and impact makes sense for them as well on an economic perspective. So we have implemented certain milestones, KPIs, and if those milestones are met by the company, for example, if they certify their supply chain, if they support female empowerment in their companies, or if they reduce their CO2 footprint, then the interest margin goes down. So that's a real economic incentive for companies to go to that transition path, and we really want to encourage all companies to take this transformation serious, because it's in the long run, it not only matters, but it pays off for them. So the clients, the customers, and now also the financing partners, they reward this kind of transformational change, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you. So Christiane, CEO and founder von Off-Grid Europe, your business is exemplary in many of the things that we talked about today, mainly in terms of your large-scale investments into the electricity grid in Senegal. So let me start with a broader question, especially for all those of us unfamiliar with your project. Could you explain your decision in 2020 to found a subsidiary group of your company in Dakar?
Yes, hello. Hi, Christiane Krag, my name. Just to explain quickly, our company provides off-grid solutions for areas that have troubled access to electricity, or we're replacing diesel generators with photovoltaic and battery storage. So Senegal started really by us being part of the ASEA 300 project in Senegal, where the government decided to electrify the whole country by 2025. We're probably not going to make it quite by 2025, might be a little bit longer, but they're on the good way. So we decided to found a local entity in Senegal because we wanted to make sure that we actively do knowledge transfer and creating jobs locally and leave a huge impact in not only in the villages but also for people and knowledge transfer and job creation.
Yeah, Dr. Robert Herrmann, CEO and of German Trade and Investment, is the German Government Foreign Trade Agency. You are the central point of contact for all questions from German companies regarding export business, even to India, to Latin America, all around the world. So which markets in the global south are of particular interest to German companies, and what market trends and developments are you observing?
Yeah, thank you very much. Very broad question, and it could take me half an hour to explain what I think where business opportunities are. Maybe let me add to what you mentioned about Germany Trade and Invest. We're a government agency, and we inform German companies about businesses or business opportunities and economies worldwide. We have offices in 58 nations, and try to be informed and publish information about every market that is there. Lower the entry barrier to a market. That is very relevant, and we come to that maybe later. What is necessary for companies, lower the entry barrier is important. The question about the markets. I have prepared a long speech. I could send that afterwards to everyone who is interested. I tried to make it very short. First of all, we have global crises everywhere. Companies have to diversify markets, have to diversify supply chains, and the Global South is playing a very relevant role for that. So companies or countries are implementing structures to protect their economies, strengthen their economies, that offers opportunities as well as barriers for a market entry. And you have to know, if we speak about opportunities, there might also be challenges entering a market. Going maybe a little through the different southern continents, let's say. Let me start with Africa. There is a huge potential in Africa with businesses in 54 countries in different sectors. So the population in Africa is growing, is doubling up until 2050, up to 2.5 billion people. So it's a huge population, that's a huge market opportunity. There is infrastructure needed for this growing economies. Investment annually about 170 billion euros annually in infrastructure only in Africa. The 12 under the 20 most fastest growing countries in the world, 12 African countries are located. So there is, I can name them: Niger, Senegal, Libya, Rwanda, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and others. I'm sorry, to make it short. So there are a lot of opportunities, and there are so many countries, and the amount of countries is the same size as the amount of challenges to the markets. So it is important to understand what it means to be in one of these countries, and not every country is the same as the other country. Let me say a few words about South and Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is the most relevant growing region, with India leading the region there, with a growth of 6.5% GDP growth in 2023 alone. And ASEAN countries are offering a bunch of opportunities nowadays for a lot of small and medium-sized companies with interesting market sectors in not only a market in general, in technology even. So there are market opportunities in several sectors that you have to really analyze, especially to better understand where the opportunities are. It's again, Asia is not only about China, it's much more than that. Companies are seeking to diversify from not only being active and partner with China, so the companies should also think about opportunities in Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. These regions are very interesting, and I mentioned India in a very relevant position. India and other countries in Asia are implementing investment promotion incentive schemes for production location in their regions. very interesting opportunities for companies thinking about the business in this region. And last but not least, there's Latin America, a continent that has been named, I think, for several decades already, being the future continent or the continent of future business. That has not been materialized yet, even though there are more and more opportunities that are relevant or related to the energy change that we have, transformation of the industry in Europe. We need sustainable energy supply, and all the global south countries that I have mentioned or have not mentioned offer tremendous opportunities for renewable energy generation. And by that, for so-called power shoring, companies seek to locate investments closer to the power source, the renewable power source that they generate or could have access to. And that's very relevant, for example, to hydrogen business. That's an opportunity for also future sectors as one of the several sectors that are there. So that in brief, I could elaborate a little more in case you're interested.
Yeah. The German SMEs are very globalized, so we will sign an MOU later on with India, and I'm happy to see that the economic attaché from the Indian embassy, and also with Latin America, the ambassador of Chile just arrived, and we are happy to launch this initiative as well. So now, Stefan, head of Invest for Jobs in Senegal, you are successfully supporting the market development of German SMEs in Senegal together with our association. We did start the task force Senegal 5 years ago. So what support do you offer German companies to gain a foothold in Senegal? In which concrete results have you been achieved so far?
Yeah, thanks, Andreas. Let me just point out what is, as Benjamin Knödel already said, what is Invest for Jobs? Invest for Jobs is a program of the BMZ which focuses on Morocco, on Tunisia, on Egypt, Rwanda, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. And when I started, and I'm a product of the German Mittelstand, when I started to work for the first time in my life for the public sector, I really said, let's consider really the issue to create jobs, because we should be really clear what is the meaning of a job being in Africa. And we are not talking about those who are cleaning streets. We are talking really about qualified jobs, independently if it's in the agricultural sector, if it's in the industry, or even in the IT sector. So we have different levels, and every country, as I presented before, is different. So nowadays, and I just talked to my colleagues here in Berlin, we are counting 43,000 jobs. So if we multiply that by 6, which is a normal number of a household in Africa, we have already a figure of 240,000, which more or less is a city like Bochum, if we cut off Wattenscheid. Mm-hmm. That means to say, I mean, there is a progress. We have a currency which really counts, and that is something which we also have to contribute and communicate to the public communication we have. When you talked about German companies, I mean, which was a kind of reflect to the request of the German industry, particularly to the BVMW, to say, we want to work with you in order to see what is possible. And I also have to say, and some of our partners are here, it's really relevant to consider that German companies have to be brave, and that is a service which we have to provide it in the last couple of, I guess, even 5 years. And now we see that the seeds are getting fruitful, and we see already certain results, not only with regard to figures. I mean, Benjamin Knödel has already said we are talking about supply chains, value chains. I mean, the program has in the different countries different perspectives and a lot of success, which is just a start of the point. So the service we provide is very numerous. It's not only the services we do from A to Z, like assisting a company how to register a company like in Tunisia or also in Germany, in Senegal, but it's also about technical expertise. So we have conceptualized, for instance, programs for training. We're talking about TVET systems which we have to adapt, because what is necessary to achieve employability, and this is, I guess, the major issue, is really how we can identify the needs. So we are talking about a population like in my country, we have 50% of the young population which cannot read and write, but they have skills. And how to develop the skills in order to make it practical for German companies, but most of the companies, of course, are Senegal companies. And what is particularly to me the cell in the soup is how can we collaborate with joint ventures, meaning to say Senegal local companies with German companies. And again, there are certain players here sitting in this audience who have just made this experience, despite the fact in the beginning everybody was like, I know the system, I have a concept, and that's at least my work or our work, talking on behalf of all my colleagues who work in the different countries, how can we translate the need of German companies in the particular country? And this is, I mean, we have multiple examples, also always depending on the sector, how we can organize it and what kind of instruments we have. I mean, just today we had a kind of conversation, which is also very, I mean, really important to say, this is not an activity of GSZ alone. I mean, KfW is sitting, we have the SECWA, we have BMOs, like certain chambers of commerce, but also industrial chambers. And we try really to create an ecosystem where we can support each other. It's not fragmented. It's really like, how can we work together in order to combine the technical collaboration also with the financial collaboration? And that is an issue which we have further developed. When I started the job, and most probably it will be my last job before retirement, I just said to my wife, I want to stay somewhere 10 years to see what is growing. And what I see actually, and I'm not somebody who's fishing for compliments, but I see that the roots are grasping, and that is really something we should work on and continue this kind of collaboration, particularly with the task force, and that is special for Senegal. So thanks to all the members of BVMW. And again, even yesterday we have said, how can we even exchange with the colleagues of GSZ this idea of economy, et cetera, et cetera. So there are a lot of things which we still have to do, but I think we are on the right track after also fighting with certain conditions.
For those who are thinking to go to Angola or to Guinea, we have already onboarded a process for other task force to Tunisia. Felix Saracen is here, the head of the Tunisian SC initiative, and also Rwanda. So this is really a special instrumental way to achieve and to approach markets which you never might have been, you know. And so my question also to Christiane is, you have established this hub in Western Africa. What is the key factor for your company's success in Western Africa? What challenges did you face? And would you recommend to other German companies that are interested in entering in new markets of the Global South?
Starting from the back, absolutely. I think we as German companies really need to collaborate and help each other, because it's far away. It's really helpful to gain the experience maybe another company made already, and I encourage anybody who is thinking about doing business in Africa to make use of all the instruments the German state, but also organizations have in place to do business in Africa. And challenges are many, of course. Just a very simple cultural challenges that you have. You need to get to know the country you're working in. You need to figure out how things work, how people are. That's something you just learn by doing, really. You have, of course, the environmental challenges of totally different climate, heat, much longer distances than what we're used to. And simply geographically as well, for us as a company, it's a 6-hour flight at the moment to go to Senegal. And you can't just go for a small project. It has to be a sizable project, but obviously with a bigger project comes a more financial risk. It's more difficult to reach the people that owe you the money, I guess, in a way. So there are a lot of challenges that you have, but it's very, very satisfying working in Senegal. The impact that we can create is so much bigger than what we're used to doing here, and it's very well appreciated. And yeah, that's...
Thank you. Yeah, and Jan, as part of your financing activities, you are in regular contact with German SMEs. So what are the main reasons why investment financing does not materialize at the end? Because in all our trips, we oftentimes hear we need only 250,000, but they offer only 10 million. So how we can match the expectations with the Impact Connect?
Yes, thanks. That's a difficult question. So it's complex at the end, and there's a lot of feeling. But just to point out 3 points. First of all, we need to see a proof of concept. That's what we call proof of concept. So we need to have an established company, European company, typically a German company, who has done this business somewhere before. Not in the particular country, but somewhere in the world successfully, and can scale it up and bring it to another country. And we have to believe in the management capacity of the company. So we are always partners of the company, but the company has to do the work. So we need to see that proof of concept, first thing. Second, we need to see a long-term perspective of our partners. So we, as a German government bank, we go with long-term financing in the project. So typically 7 years financing. So we are really committed to partner up on the long term in difficult countries, in difficult environments. And we need to have the commitment of our partner to be long-term invested as well. So, and that's why the fit to German, usually family-owned Mittelstand companies is so perfect, because their view is not short-term stock-driven. Their view is also long-term. They usually think in generations and not in annual numbers. And the third thing is the companies need to understand the importance and the concept of environmental and social risk. That's a very important point for us. So we're not only focusing on economic risk, but also on environmental, social risk and impact. And the capacity and the willingness has to be in the company to, not from the very beginning, but along the way, to implement systems and measures to have an international environmental and social risk standard. And that's very important. And sometimes it's overwhelming for smaller companies, but we support them with financial leads from BMZ and also with our expertise. So we're in this together, and we want to try to figure something out. And I don't want to scare anyone off because of so many hurdles and obstacles. But it has been mentioned several times. So we are all connected here. So we're strongly connected with GTI. We're of course with GIZ. We're all connected. It's one network of German, European institutions doing business with German companies. So just come to us, approach us, and we figure out what works. So there's so many programs and so many things and so many hurdles. Don't think about them. Just write me a mail, and I will contact the GTI colleagues or whoever might fit, and then we figure out what works.
For all the friends from South America, please come. We lay a little bit behind our schedule because the general took a little bit longer than foreseen. Would you please close the door and come inside, please, Christian, that we don't have the noise from outside. Thank you. So Benjamin, now, your ministry launched a new strategy for cooperation with the private sector in autumn last year. So what are now the strategic cornerstones of the paper, and what specific support mechanism do you offer to SMEs tapping into the market of the global south, not only in Africa? Most welcome to the ambassador of Colombia. Please come and sit down here, please. Please enter. We are starting now launching the Latin America initiative. Please come. Well, sorry.
Thank you, Andreas. And I have to admit, it's working? Yeah. I already anticipated your question and kind of answered it in my first response because our Africa strategy was very generic when it came to private sector engagement. While it highlighted the relevance, the specifications we still had to hammer out. But I want to go a step further, and I want to take you beyond the scope of development cooperation. I want to take you beyond the scope of development cooperation, and there's two things I'd like to raise. One, and that's a response I frequently get when I speak with company representatives, with entrepreneurs, with you, is whom should I talk to? And that's what Jan alluded to. Where's the relevant information I need? And right now the information is there, but it's very fragmented. It's hard to figure out where the relevant program, the relevant competency, the relevant knowledge is. Right, there's GTIE, there's the Agency for Business and Development, there's the business associations of German business, there's the chambers of commerce. Not to forget there's GIZ, who is everywhere and who has a wide range of knowledge and actually who knows the various regulatory systems. You said 54 countries, but beyond that, people really know about it. They have offices in the relevant ministries. So how do we match the demand for information and the knowledge? And I want to give you a sneak peek. We had long and thorough discussions with our colleagues at the Ministry of the Economy and Climate Change, people working on trade and investment promotion, and us, people working on development cooperation. How can we make it easier for companies to get to the relevant information? And against this backdrop, we're about to launch a joint portal later this year, asking companies, what do you need? Whether it's information on markets, on sectors, on countries, on trade and investment promotion, on cooperation, on public-private partnerships, with development cooperation, on funding, right? To make it very easy, KI supported. And if you're old school, if you don't want to go through that, you can always ask to be called back, and we'll sort it out for you. We'll lead you to the relevant information. So that's the one thing we want to do, and I think that's very specific and that's very relevant to make it easier. And the second is, and that's a bit more complicated, and that's a to-do for all of us, for you, business, and for us, government. And that's to solve a challenge of a mismatch we're currently facing. German companies are amazing. They're world leaders when it comes to the very specific product they produce. The demand of many of the partner countries we work in is to deliver turnkey projects. And I understand that very well, and just to reflect on Germany, the city and state of Berlin was not able to complete an airport without the help of an EPC. Right? How can we ask our friends in our partner countries to tender without an EPC to sort it out for themselves? They cannot, and they should not. So this is a homework we have to do on our side in Europe. There's companies like Christianis and who are EPCs, and we need more EPCs in Europe, and we need to form consortia to combine the very specific knowledge and expertise, the world leaders, with their relevant competency to work together to bid on these contracts, and on these tenders. And if we manage to do that and create the relevant platforms to do that, European companies will engage more in Africa and in other emerging economies.
Thank you, and Benjamin, I'm really optimistic that even if budget constraints might have some implication to our activities, with you on BMZ, you will never go astray. I tell it to all the ambassadors. He is the one you have to contact in order to make successful your business. So now, Robert, the next question comes to you. What are your recommendations for German company for their successful market development in the global South? Now that all the ambassadors from Latin America are there, maybe you can focus also on that region a little bit so that we have a general holistic approach.
Yeah. Maybe I can speak about what I experienced a few weeks ago when I met with about 30 small and medium-sized companies in North Rhine-Westphalia, and we speak about the Global South. And they did tell me, why should I do something in Global South if it's easier in Netherlands or in France? Because business is so easy. It's the same language, it's a similar culture. What I wanted to add is, it's not only about that we have and we centralize the information that we offer and that's easy access to them. We have also to tell the companies that there are opportunities, and where the benefit is in doing something in Latin America, in Africa, in South and Southeast Asia. So it's not only that we prepare or try to or should be prepared that there is someone who is seeking for information, we should let them know, the companies, that there are opportunities and that there are ways of having a new market, yes, in a different culture, yes, in a different language. Yes, it might be different in many reasons, but there are huge opportunities. And I mentioned maybe also the question of raw materials. So we have a tremendous issue, or tremendous demand of raw materials in Europe. And coming to Latin America, for example, there is a huge amount of raw materials available that we need, and we have to work together on the opportunities. How could we have access to that? And we have to let the companies know, the German companies, how they could benefit from the opportunities that are there. So I would like to add to the opportunity that has been mentioned. It's good to have one location where you find information. We have to also let them know, the companies, the companies know that there are so many good opportunities. And yes, they are challenging, but in the end, it might be a very good story and might be a tremendous success for your organization, your company, and your products.
Thank you so much. So to close our discussion, you know, as a politician, and I'm responsible here also for the political part in our association, Benjamin might know it better than me. You have always, as a politician, raised hope to create hope. So as it is green, as we know, the hope, the color of hope, Stefan, it would be your part, which hope we can take, which sign of courage we can take all over to go to the Global South.
Well, I only can present the lowlands of implementation, so I'm not contributing to the heights of political issues. I mean, well, we said it already. I mean, talking to the entrepreneurs, you have to be brave and you should trust. I remember when I came back in 2000 from Chad, I was working in Chad. I mean, I realized that Germany was really suffering about globalization. And everybody talked to me and said, hey, we have missed the train. I mean, Germany did. And that's what I hope also for Africa, particularly for West Africa. I mean, North Africa, to me, 2 weeks ago, I was in Morocco. And to be honest, I was totally impressed about Morocco. I mean, might be similar also in Tunisia. That means you have to get your experience in the country. Don't read so many newspaper articles, because the reality is mostly different. So what I can announce is to the entrepreneurs, be brave. I mean, with the medium of BVMW, we have a very good platform. I mean, join this kind of delegation trips. This is not cultural, folkloristic activities. This is really business. But you are going to meet really people on site. And what is necessary? I mean, development collaboration is always also cultural. It's a cultural issue. And that is the main part of our jobs, to translate your needs with the needs of the people in the different countries. So, meaning to say, the cultural issue is something which is very interesting, very inspiring, and then I see certain people have been very reluctant in the beginning, and now they love to go regularly to come to Senegal, and they know that's a kind of marathon. It's not something, I don't know how it's in Latin America, but that is something, if you want to do it, you have to go also in the dialogue, and you should not expect that everything is ongoing like in Germany, and we often have this kind of conflict, but that is something we think it's worth to work. And again, all the partners are sitting here, they are leading you, assisting you, and as our friend from GAG said, Mr. Müller, said, I mean, don't be afraid about all the hurdles, because that's the job we are paid for in order to assist you to overcome these hurdles. And again, we are talking about economic growth. Coming back to Germany, everybody is complaining about the situation. Africa gives you a lot of opportunities, which is also good for Germany as well.
Thank you so much, Stefan, for this brilliant wrap-up. It's really appreciated. So in order to close our discussion about the attractive potentials in the Global South, I would like to read a quote of Julius Nyerere, which I had the privilege to meet some years ago. He told, in order to be a realist, you must believe in miracles. You might not change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. Sometimes the greatest miracle in our life is recognizes that the world can change and restart. So that's a good point for all of us, and I encourage you, all of you, that we look forward in a positive and constructive way. And I think all of us who are here together, we are really passionate, and we are inviting you to go to future markets and to discover with us, with our association, and with our friends from the business community, from the ministries, and also from the institutions to join us. So thank you so much. I would come to another point. Please stay here. I just will welcome now our excellencies and distinguished ambassadors, and I thank you so much for joining us, particularly here in this great event.